everyone. Welcome to the Magic Moronz podcast. I'm your host, Joe Cherries from the Nitpicking Nerds. You might know me. Also here with a bunch of other awesome people. And my co-host, Albert, introduce yourself.
I'm introduced myself, Albert Markov. And our third host is...
Hello, everyone. I'm Elba. Glad to be here as usual. And we're joined today by two very special guests.
We got Billy the Fridge in the upper right-hand corner. I'm assuming it's going to be the whatever corner with the green screen is Billy the Fridge, because I don't know. Behind me. I can never tell how it's going to be laid out.
Move him, no matter where he is. You can move him to that position.
I don't know technology. And from Magic Arcanum, we have Ryan Gomez. He's the lore master of all lore masters.
Certainly in the top 20, like easily.
Top 1,000.
Top 5.
You're definitely in my top 1,000.
Top 1,000. Wow.
I mean, it's good. He could be number one, but also he's definitely in the top 1,000.
I'd say number one. Okay, so let's get the 30th anniversary elephant out of the room. We've all seen what has been going on with Magic as far as the stocks, right?
Yeah.
You know what I saw the other day? I saw Magic the Gathering cards being aired on Fox News on a Fox News stock discussion. They actually had the card art up there and talked about how much they had fell in value. So I want to know how has everybody been taking this? Are people nervous? Are you nervous? How are you feeling? Because I'm a little nervous. I know it doesn't apply to me necessarily because I'm not one of the 1%ers, but I want to get your all's takes.
I mean, my take on card prices, cheaper cards is just better because all I care for the game, what I care about is playability. That's literally, I'm not a collector. I don't have a problem with collectors, but it's like, if cards are more accessible to people, no matter what cards they are, I'm happy. So it's like, if cards just keep dropping in price, it's just a positive for me.
What about you, Alba?
If it's just card prices that are dropping, but if it drops to the point that the game is no longer financially sustainable for Hasbro, what happens then, right? You need something like a gold standard. The cards have to have an intrinsic value, otherwise they just walk away from this and they decide Magic's not going to be a thing for another 30 years or whatever. So you don't want it to get too cheap where it's not worth them printing it. But I understand that, you want people to be able to have collections. Same time, where do people take those collections? It's the local game store. And to keep the lights on there, those guys have to be able to sell stuff at a profit. And they have to have products that, get people in the door and buying stuff as well. So there's a difficult equilibrium to maintain. I don't know if Bank of America is the authority on where that equilibrium should fall. It's just one report, and they just downgraded the status of the stock. That doesn't mean that the sky is falling Chicken Little style, but it does echo a lot of things that players have been saying for a while. It feels like product fatigue. It feels like whale hunting. They're maybe the pendulum has swung too far in a certain direction, but that doesn't mean I want to see it come crashing back the other way either. The healthy point is somewhere in the middle. It's just a question of who is the right authority to decide where that middle point is. And I don't think it's BOFA.
I'm with Ryan. I'm a collector, I gotta say. I don't actually care about card prices because I collect due to emotional attachment to cards. I like to play with the cards that I've had since I was a kid.
Sure.
So I agree with you, Joe. Cheaper cards are best for everyone. I agree with you, Ryan. They have to have a bottom price that is still high enough to be worth it.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, if you look at how prices move, it is usual for prices to dip a bit around Thanksgiving. This did not happen in 2020, and that was the freak occurrence, but it is very usual that people will unload their duels and their power to near right before Christmas time, and the prices go back up after the tax returns come in, because then everyone wants to use their tax returns to buy the expensive cards. So maybe there's something. One could say that it was because of the BOFA evaluation, and that certainly didn't help. And I'm sure the Bank of America evaluation hurt Hasbro stock more than it hurt the card prices. But I have seen someone say that on Twitter, and I gotta say, man, can you imagine being so greedy that Bank of America turns up to you and says, man, your business model is real greedy.
Reel it in. Reel it in.
The business model right now, you're getting like these greedy overproductions, but you're also the prices of cards, like you said, is just playability. You're getting access to rares cheaper in the very basic form of the rares, and then these chase cards exist that target the whales, and we don't really need like number stamped artifacts or gilded foil, whatever. We don't need those chase rares as players. So they might have got a space here where they figured out how to please both. And I think long term we're gonna have to see the numbers. But I have a friend who's he's an old friend of mine through music, and he got into stocks. And he knew I was into Magic, and this last week he hit me up and asked me a bunch of questions because he's looking to invest into Hasbro because he wants it to drop so that he can watch it climb back up, because he thinks, from everything he sees, he thinks they're doing everything right, and this fatigue is more of a boogeyman than anything.
That's interesting.
I don't know if I'd go that far, because the story Hasbro's telling us is the same that sports cards did back in the 90s, adding the number chase cards extra, dingly bit foils. Next step, they're going to add pieces of players' jerseys into the cards. That's the only thing that sports cards did.
Right?
Huh?
No, Mark Rosewater's flannel is what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm aroused.
Nazi hats and shirts. I think we could get some Gavin material.
Here you go, yeah.
Gavin's got some suits.
We all know how sports cards in the 90s ended up. Heck, it's the same thing with Marvel. And Marvel started doing all those collectible comics with exclusive covers and foil covers, and that's what led them to bankruptcy.
I think there's a couple key differences for Magic.
What's a sport? Just kidding.
Comparing to sports cards, one of the biggest with sports cards was there was a million companies making them. Magic obviously doesn't deal with that, and then you flip the comics, which are very similar. There was one and two companies like making the comics that were on the top tier, but the difference between a comic book and a Magic card is the Magic cards are playable in a game. Comic books are awesome; they're cool, collectible. You can read them, but you can also just kind of they're one use, they're done. Magic cards you use for a longer period of time.
That is a very good point.
Well, you might have one comic book and you collect that one comic book. With Magic, you got 4 ofs in a deck. You have multiple decks that need multiple copies. The more demand there is, the more interest there is, the more one person is going to swoop up multiple copies of things, which it doesn't compare in the world of like sports cards.
I think it is. I think it's a fair comparison. I just don't. I think there is other factors, obviously. Like I think
it definitely is a fair comparison. I don't mean to discredit the comparison. Just that there is like another element here that we can't really factor. Well, it's obviously in time. We'll see if Magic continues to be the beloved property that it is. Like maybe people do get sour because they don't want to pay $1,000 for a pack of proxies.
It's tough to see the patterns because Magic is making the
Ryan's files.
Because we're not like a lot of other things. Like you can follow patterns that have happened before, but like collectible card games, the pattern is being set by wizards, right? So it's like it's tough to say this is the pattern that will lead to its downfall when it's like the trailblazer in tradable card games, collectible card games, and it's the one that has stood the test of time, whereas others tend to fall off. Like as many popular collectible card games we had, how many have stayed popular? Even like Yu-Gi-Oh had a huge peak; it just died off in popularity. Pokemon has had a resurgence recently, but still fell off in popularity, especially from a game standpoint.
I mean, the only plus that I can see from all of this is as an art lover, I am thrilled to see the variations because but that's purely selfish. I just love seeing all the new artists and artwork on it. But I mean, that's kind of where I am a little bit of a hypocrite because I do get sort of, I'm not for the massive product push, but then I still kind of want them because they have the artwork on it. And I get very OCD about the artwork and collecting and that kind of thing. You know, like maybe a little compulsive.
I recently saw someone calling this the way that Wizard has been releasing product, the TikTokization of Magic.
The what now?
You know TikTok, the
Okay.
30-second, the
Yeah.
15-second video app.
Yeah.
So the idea is Magic is more than just looking at the cards and having the cards. There's a ton of thinking about the cards and talking about the cards as well. Nowadays, we don't have time for that. Even before one set is released, we're already getting spoilers and previews for the upcoming set and the announcement of the new secret lair. So we never have time to talk and think about and talk about the new release anymore. We hardly have time to appreciate the art anymore. So it's like instead of appreciating the long form content, it's like bombardment. It's like TikTok, but for sales.
It's kind of like in the music industry, you know, you might have an album come out and there's a song on the album that's not very popular, and then TikTok itself will take that song, popularize it, and then years later you have a million hits. We have this creator economy around Magic right now, and you know, we'll see like Nitpicking Nerds will talk about a card and the next day it raises 1,000% in price, you know.
Joe, that's true, by the way. That happened the other day.
We
Oh,
will
wait,
always,
the other day it happened. I mean, I know it's happened in the past, but I didn't recently.
I was watching what's the channel? He's like, check out Flipside Gaming. I can't remember the name of the channel for the life of me. It's like, oh my god, he does the magic. He does the magic.
the stock report, right?
Yeah,
Magic Market Watch.
thank you. That's it. And they discussed you guys. Said Nitpicking Nerds mentioned a card, and the card saw a spike in sales. So you've got like you've got that power now.
I love that. I love them over there. They've shouted us out like 3 or 4 times now. This new one I didn't know about. Now I want to know what card it is.
I wish I had done my proper research and remembered it, but I can't do that. That would have been totally apt.
I think with the idea that we're not being able to enjoy the cards upon their release the way that we could when there weren't so many releases, it is an honest complaint. But like we can't always go back to them. You know, they're in the compendium now. They exist, and we will find these years from now, these cards that have became sleepers, like we saw on the Magic Market Watch. It will continue to thrive and exist as long as the community still wants to buy into it. And from a community aspect, Magic is strong. The content creators are strong. The creators of the game, like if you look at the people who are making Magic, the people who work for Wizards of the Coast, the industry they're in, it's a competitive industry, and to be at Wizards, you kind of have to love the game. And these people are intelligent people, creative people that love the game. And I feel like we have to also give them a bit of credit for they're dealing with our complaints 2 years behind from when they're going to be able to actually change them, right?
Right.
So
And
I think we're in good hands, but that's just me wishful thinking maybe.
but how much also too, like I always wonder what the behind the scenes of like when the orders come down to make more money for the people who are stockholders, that comes from Hasbro, not directly from Wizards of the Coast, right? So I wonder how much of it is they're being sort of like, you know, like driven to do this versus, you know, was it their idea? And I suppose we'll never know, but one thing that Ryan, I saw in one of your videos about is that, and speaking of like what's on the cards and maybe an overabundance, you felt that the spotlights in the Brothers War, right? You felt like there was too many, and I was surprised to hear you say that you didn't think that it hit any of the points of the story, like either in the the future version and the past version. I was kind of interested to hear your take on that, because I don't know how familiar everybody is with the story, but Ryan can break it down pretty good.
Sure. So Brothers War takes us to a giant story event that I would venture most players right now don't even know what it is. But Magic has gotten so big over 30 years, it has this giant history, and there was this really important thing that happened that we've only kind of ever seen a little bit in some cards, but we never actually had the event happen, but we talked about it. And now finally we're there and we get to see it play out. And the best way to express this is not by like reprinting the Brothers War book that existed 20 something years ago now, not making that original story available to people. We're just gonna cram the whole story into a bunch of spotlight cards as a reference to this book that most players have not read. Most don't even know it exists, right? So it's like a very weird, you're looking through like a keyhole into a room that has this whole thing happening, but you only get to see what you can see through that slice of the keyhole. And it just struck me as so odd that it's the 30th anniversary. They're hyping up this giant event. The technology is here. They just rebuilt the whole website. They're changing all this stuff. And all they had to do is be like, here's the original book. You can download it as a PDF, our gift to you, completely free. Okay, I'm on board with that. But instead they're like, or here are 40 story spotlight cards, not numbered, not in order. You figure it out. Have fun. I don't get it. I don't understand why that they would take one of their greatest assets, which is this huge backstory and lore and all this cool stuff that people took the time to write and care about. And now we're at the present day and we're like, oh, this is it. Finally, our chance to show off this colossal thing. And they're like, Teferi's bouncing around in time, and I don't know. It's cool. Here's a dragon engine that has unearth. Go nuts.
Well, there you go, right there. Tell us how you really feel. No, but that actually, as somebody who does not have any formal, because I'm not from the early days of Magic, and I don't think you are, Joe, either, right? You started middle
about 10 years ago,
and I'm War of the Spark, so I'm a baby. And you all, the rest of you guys are early times, right? Like, what was your first set, Ryan?
I started playing in 1997, so I had like 5th edition, Tempest, Exodus. My very first deck was an Exodus pre-constructed deck, but my friends had given me some cards before that, like in the lunch table, but it was probably like 4th and 5th edition. So not quite the very beginning, but within the first 4 or 5 years of the game.
Billy Elba, what was your first?
I had friends getting into it in like 94, and it was sold out all over the city. So I was so excited when this new set came out. The day it came out, Fallen Empires, I was able to buy a ton of packs.
Oh, wow.
And it was cool. I think I got like a breeding pit, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is fantastic. I make thralls every turn. And a deep spawn, another good one. Mm-hmm. But like, obviously looking back on it, this was the worst, but I was already in love with the game before I even got into it. So it was just from then on out, it was just playing, shuffling up and slapping spells.
And back then you had to piece the story together yourself by what appeared on the cards. And like, there wasn't a really tight narrative. Over the years,
Tempest is a very good example of that. I think it's one or two exceptions. Every single art in Tempest are telling the story.
Yeah.
So you actually can, if you know the story, if you already know the story, you can illustrate it with the cards. If you don't know the story, I mean, it looks really cool.
What? No, but you get the sense, like, this character keeps appearing. There's important stuff happens. This must be a major character, and there's a thread that connects all that.
Yeah,
together.
absolutely.
I don't think you get that in the Brothers War. I don't think even looking at the story spotlight cards, you don't get that there's a connected narrative to that the way that you used to in Tempest.
And there was nothing. Was there any redeeming factors for you in the newer stories, or you found they were dissatisfactory as well?
I mean, I like the stories, period. I mean, that's my whole channel is talking about the stories behind the cards. So I'm never going to say that they're bad and they're not worth reading. But it's that
I can take that out of context.
Clip it and we're out. Okay. But I am most satisfied when there is an overlap between what the cards depict and how they mechanically play out and what we're told happens in the narrative. There should be something there that, like, okay, I get it. Maybe nobody in the story ever literally says, I cast lightning bolt. But maybe we see Joda like flick his wrist and some like weak Phyrexian tips over dead with sparks coming out. And you're like, okay, that's clearly he like electrified him and it's like 3-ish damage and like that guy had like 3 toughness or whatever. And like you get it. Like the spells should be there. The character should be there. The events should be there. When I open a pack, I should be like, oh yeah, this is that land, that's the city that they go to in the story, and that's where they rescue the princess, and like it all makes sense. And instead they're like, nope, here's a thing that happened a long time ago and you're going to get little bits and pieces of it. and we're going to tell it to you in this giant 10-episode epic, and there's time travel and so much happening, but they can't do the 3-set blocks anymore because of reasons, and so we have to crush this mammoth story down into one set. And that's the sad part, is that you would think being the 30th anniversary, they're so hyped about, oh, Magic is come home to Dominaria and we have all these great things to share, we can't wait to tell you about it. But then they don't.
This is the second story in a 4 Dominaria like set arc, right?
This is the flashback though, right?
It's a flashback. So it's the third one since 2018. There was Dominaria in 2018, then Dominaria United recently, and now Brothers War is a flashback.
Did they do any?
The next 2 sets are going to be in Dominaria though as well, right?
But yeah, I think they're going to be Phyrexian focused, though.
The next one is Phyrexia All Be One. Presumably, the hero characters have brought the attack to Phyrexia. Argentum, whatever we're calling it these days.
Yeah, we assume we'll be on there.
So I,
I didn't even assume that. I'm a dum-dum.
And then we've got March of the Machine, which doesn't come out in March. You know, that's the biggest miss. They could have. Talk about expectations not aligning.
Oh,
But all we've really seen is like some key art, which appears to be a bunch of characters from many planes coming together, and like not planeswalkers. We got like dragons from Kamigawa. We've got Borborygmos from Ravnica. Like they're all standing side by side. So it's a very
Essica.
Avengers portal moment when everyone just shows up for some big fight. But we don't know where. Like it probably is on the branches of the World Tree or something.
Oh no!
But we're not there yet, so I can't tell you.
I didn't see any of that. Okay, so but was there any? Because I'm not able to really. I get a little lost in it. But was there any sort of recourse for Urza's wife? Because I know her storyline was a little rough, right? Was anything said to like give her maybe deeper characterization, or maybe not make her feel like she was just a piece of meat?
So, man, so in the story for the Brothers War, it's like I said, told over 10 chapters. Teferi goes back in time to try to find the moment Urza ignites the Silex to end the Brothers War. And Teferi's using the temporal anchor time machine to travel through time. But every time he uses it, he goes to a different point, and he's got to dial it in to get to that exact moment. Sometimes he arrives too early, and we get scenes set during the buildup of the Brothers' War. He might see like the fall of Krug or some big city getting ransacked or something. And I think for at least one of them, he shows up after the blast has gone off, and he observes Kayla rebuilding, right? And she's got to figure out how to save what's left of her kingdom now that this ice age is coming in. And Tawnos appears. He's like, look, I know things are really messed up, but I'd like to help. And she's like, well, we're not building any more of these giant robots. I'm so sick of the war. Like, this destroyed my husband and my son and like everything. So no robots. And Tawnos is like, but what if they're nice robots? And like, so there's a whole thing where he's like trying to, because they need the manpower, they need construction, they need vehicles and whatnot. And so there's a lot of debate, and she's really struggling like personally with like, I don't want any more relics of war in my kingdom. And Tawnos is like, yeah, but like we need to eat, we need to clear rubble out of the streets, like we can't do that with the people that we have left. And so like that's like a good moment that does help grow, and you get to see what's important to her as a leader. And then eventually the climate becomes unbearable, and she has to convince everyone in the city to pack up and migrate, and there's a whole big story
Exodus.
and right, so each chapter has like a nod to an old set name in it. So like those moments are great. You don't really see those on the cards. Like there's just the one Kyla's command or Kyla's reconstruction or whatever, and you have to from that like infer that this whole thing happened. But to answer your question, they I think deliberately avoided some of the messier bits about her getting around with Mishra and Urza. Like that doesn't come up anywhere.
Oh yeah.
You know, because like the kid Harbin, like I guess it's never really clear whose son it is. He's raised by Urza, but it might have been Mishra's kid all along. But none of that comes up. I mean, that's kind of
there's no 23. There's no 23andMe they could use either.
Right. Back then, Magic story was just kind of all over the place. They didn't know the game was going to be around 30 years. They didn't know.
That's what I was going to say. This is something that really disappointed me in Brothers War. when they first said, "Oh, we're going to visit the past, visit the old Brothers War,"
Yeah.
my gut reaction like, well, I usually don't like retconning, but that's an early 90s story. If there's something that could be retconned,
Yeah.
there are some things in that story that could bear being improved. I very much like the new Ashnod design. I think it's much better than the original one. But at the same time, they just took this opportunity and instead of just doing what they did with the original 2018 Dominaria and just pretend it's always been like this, and okay, they just avoided it. Let's pretend it didn't happen and hope no one asks.
That's it's an interesting point. Ryan, do you read the comics? Do you read the comics, the Magic comics?
No, I've not been up to speed on the.
Oh my God!
My brother is collecting them. He's going to give them to me when he's
I am shocked only because I really, really love them. Has anybody else read any of them? I mean, am I the only person here? God, you guys.
I'll tell you why. I got burned. I started on the Chandra books that was supposed to be like a 4-part series. And I got like the first 2, and then they never announced when like the next one was coming. And I wasn't making trips to the comics. Like if I would regularly go to the comic store, sure, but I was making trips there just to get this book.
Oh, you got done dirty.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna. I don't know. They fell off the cadence. They didn't really announce when the next one, and I just kind of gave up. And then they're like, here's a whole new series. It has nothing to do with that one. It's different. It's also not connected to the main real continuity. We can do whatever we want with these comics. It's gonna be fun. And I'm like, I have a hard enough time getting the cards and the written story to stay together. Now you're adding in a whole nother universe with the comics.
I'll tell you this much.
Where's my Netflix show though? That.
That's to be actually, because it should be out any day now, right? Because they said it's going to be released in 2022, so we got about like a month left. I'm sure that they'll be able to cast it in a month, and I'm sure that they'll have that taken care of. I mean, Brandon Routh is the one character that's in it, so it's going to be
a guy that we know about.
Right, there'll be a soliloquy,
dead, so.
a very long, probably be a very long monologue, maybe. Maybe he'll play all the different planeswalkers. Now, I would pay money to see that if he was dressed as Chandra and like in Teferi, and it would be something. I mean, and don't get me wrong, he's a great actor. I'm not dissing on him. It's just that would be a tough thing to. But how does that happen? How do you go from announcing something on Netflix like very loudly to being like, we never made it to pilot? You know, like it's.
Have you ever heard about the Magic the Gathering movie?
No.
I've heard rumors of that also getting into development and then getting the rug pulled out from underneath it. But
I'm thinking the very same thing. I remember back in 98, 99, people talking about the movie, right. And I did pull it up. In 2008, Hasbro struck an agreement with Universal to produce at least 4 films. As we all know, 0 out of 4 materialized. Yeah. So I think the Netflix series has a very big MTG movie vibe.
Yeah, I mean, the guys who wrote or the guys who directed what was that, the Endgame, right? They were originally attached.
Yeah, they were attached, and then when they left, I think that the project kind of went cold.
Yeah, it sounds like they kind of just like, and I mean, because that was the selling point, really, was that when they were involved, they were Magic fans. It was really, that was what was pushing it, and then all of a sudden, you know, I mean, I went and and I'm not trying to like poo-poo anybody's writing credits, but like I looked at the writers of the pilot episode and like mostly from like the My Little Pony or Transformers or something. It's a little. It's not Brendan Sanderson, I guess, is the way I'm saying.
You can't talk bad about My Little Pony. You're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Uh-oh.
From who? The bronies? The bronies are going to come for me again?
There's a surprisingly large audience of people who love.
It is Magic adjacent there. Yeah, you can't.
I love bronies. I don't watch the My Little Pony show. Do they watch My Little Pony shows? Do they watch the cartoons?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
really? Like the cartoons for children?
Who will just defend it as like a legitimately very, very good show. Yeah,
the children's show.
I'll defend it as a legitimate very good show.
Card game.
Yeah, everything's for children until get some depth, right?
Right.
Well, has that happened for My Little Pony?
Oh yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
I think that the new run of My Little Pony, maybe not the newer run, the one before. I haven't watched it. I've only heard from bronies talking about it, but I think the one of the recent ones was supposed to be really good, like really funny, really creative. The team behind it had done a lot of other work that like made me think that it probably was interesting. But I mean, I don't have time to watch stuff that I actually am into, let alone My Little Pony. So
I have a 4-year-old niece, and I've been watching a lot of My Little Pony lately, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I would say it has the rich like heritage of maybe say a Lord of the Rings or a
it might just be about taste too. I know the professor's a big My Little Pony fan, right? So, and friendship.
I feel like I feel like that makes sense for him though. I mean, like I'm open to it. I just am confused by the liking of the show. I mean, I get like collecting the toys, and back in the day you'd scratch them and you'd smell their asses, and it would smell like strawberries or something. Like, didn't really Joe, this is what it was like.
I can scratch an ass and sniff it. Like, that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they were the ones you'd scratch them on the back, or you'd rub water on their butt, and it would turn different colors. I'm digressing all over the place. But now that I think about it, what if I'm a brony?
Apparently, there's a new series ever since 2020, but the original Friendship is Magic series developed by Lauren Faust is really, really good. As far as children cartoons go, yeah.
Okay, really? Okay, all right. I'll take that into account. All right. Well, then I feel very answered on that. But it's sad we got more answers for My Little Pony than we do for Magic the Gathering movies and the Netflix series.
Did the Russo brothers announce their involvement with Magic before the pandemic hit? Because I know they were out of it in August of 2021. So it would have been a weird time for the industry, right? Like, I can see why things might have moved around a bit.
I heard that there was creative differences that because I believe that they had a way that they wanted the story to go, and I think that there was some pushback from Hasbro, and maybe there were some board meetings where people who maybe shouldn't be discussing Magic storylines were adding their 2 cents. Like,
oh yeah.
What I think we need here is we need to have a really good, like solid, like blue planeswalker, or maybe we could start introducing a brown one. What about brown planeswalker? Everybody, like, we could put brown in the game. I think it could work.
To add the 6th color for the movie?
That's brown, pink, orange. Why not?
This is getting way into speculation here.
I'm speculating.
Sources.
I was
there.
The Russo
I was
brothers
scratching the asses of the ponies.
I was hiding in a garbage can doing just that.
Okay.
The Russo brothers announced their involvement in June 2019.
Okay, yeah. So the pandemic hits, I could see things moving around quite a bit in production.
But I mean, for it to go cold,
I would go a little further. I wouldn't even say the pandemic. What was the name of the? Oh my God, the alleged pedophile.
Which one?
Epstein.
Nick Kelman.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So when you have someone who literally says continuity is for schmucks, and says that if Jace loses a finger in a story, that doesn't mean he'll be missing a finger in the next story, and then you have talented directors working under this guy, I would not be surprised if creative differences mean I refuse to work with this man.
Yeah, that was a sudden and I wonder how that did coincide with him resigning as well. I mean, it might have been around the same time, but we'll never know with that one. But for sure, I was going to interview him a week before he stepped down. I didn't know. I had no idea. So
hey, I got some other people you should interview then. If you have that kind of power, maybe we can.
Yeah, sure.
Get you to interview the right people.
What was same thing happened with what was his name from I Hate Your Deck?
I also had plans to be on I Hate Your Deck
Before
that all came out.
Oh, I had to tell Joe. I was like, "Listen, I don't think it's gonna happen." I think the goose is cooked, but that's mean spirited. I don't want to be mean spirited.
There are people who do bad things, and those people are bad, and it's better to not interact with them.
Yeah, shitty McShittingtons. So, okay. Then a roundtable question. What is your favorite storyline or I guess story arc in all of the game? Like, I want to know. Which one do you guys think is like that you just hold sacred? It just spit it out for me because I'm curious, and I'll go last because I don't want to embarrass myself. But we only have 25 minutes left, so I'll save my embarrassment for last because I was sniffing pony butts.
I really liked the time spiral block when it hit. It was dealing with a lot of it feels like here with the Brothers War. We're getting like a taste of what the time spiral block was, but it was just so much more connecting with me as like an early player, bringing the early Magic back into the present and then seeing how it could possibly lead into the future. And it did kind of lead into the future after the block was over. You know, we got introduced to planeswalkers, and that started a whole new realm of Magic the Gathering. So from a more of a player aspect, that's when the story really grabbed me.
What about you, Ryan? Oh, I'm sorry, Alba was gonna.
Oh, I was going to say, Time Spiral is my favorite set, but I'll fight and die on the hill of Invasion. That was the first Magic book I actually got in my hands, and at the time, I swear to God, that was my Game of Thrones and my Lord of the Rings all put together. That was so mind blowing. Of course, and I realized 20 years ago, and I'm afraid of rereading it, but it was so intense and so yeah, it has a very special place in my heart.
It was your Game of the Rings, Lord of the Thrones. Well, what about Ryan? What is yours?
So mine is probably a bit more controversial. I really like War of the Spark. I think it was very ambitious. I think that it maybe didn't play out smoothly. It's not the best written story, but the idea of getting all the planeswalkers together to battle one epic threat. It was on Ravnica, which a lot of people really like. You got the guilds there. Everyone feels like they have an identity on that plane, right? Maybe you're rooting for the Rakdos, or maybe you're a law-abiding Azorius Senate mage, whatever. It felt like familiar territory. It was home in a big sense, and you get to finally see all these characters come together in a way that was really neat. And I remember that was one of the first times I got a preview card from WotC, and they'd sent the email, and our preview was the Sorin from that set. So the image, it's like, here you go, you get to preview Sorin, and every planeswalker had a signature spell, so we had Sorin's Thirst as well. They gave us 2 cards.
Wow.
Like, you'll notice your Sorin is a rare, and we're going to tell you in this email right now, there's going to also be uncommon planeswalkers. There's going to be like 30 of these guys in this set. Go nuts. And like that blue, I remember sitting in like the marketing team meeting at TCG Player when I worked there, and we're like, it was insane. And then, you get to open the packs, and there's all, here's uncommon this, uncommon that. And some of them were even good, right? Like Narset is like so stupid OP.
Yeah.
So gameplay wise, drafting that set and whatever, maybe it wasn't the best. Maybe it was a little heavy on the planeswalkers, but I liked that there were so many named cards in there that were like either a character or their signature spell. I liked that we had Nicol Bolas and his monument, and the Eternal Gods were back, and the zombie army was everywhere, and you could amass all these. The little amass mechanic was pretty fun twist on tokens. So it was like a cool story, and it just kind of hit right. And I liked being part of that preview season, and I loved watching all of these epic characters come together on a familiar battlefield. That had real stakes to it. I wish more people died, and that's a clip you could put out of context and get me in real trouble.
That is just the truth. I mean, but the stakes sucked, right? They killed Gideon.
Well, the stakes were high. They just didn't.
They didn't even kill him. Yeah.
It's like, but to piggyback on that though, I will say Liliana's arc, they nailed it with that was. I think I have to say that I think as far as the arc of a character in the entire game, for me, Liliana is the best one. Like, she could have a movie made about her character, and I would still watch it, knowing what happens to her.
Netflix special too. She could
have everything. It makes me so sad that you predicted she will, probably die because of that. I mean,
you just said her arc is so good. It's
I know.
She's dealt with the guilt. She's made peace with that. She has passed the torch to her students at Strixhaven.
Doesn't anybody die?
Not a lot left to do with her. And
doesn't anybody die of old age or like on magic? I mean, or like maybe they get they just die in their sleep. I mean, can't we get a little mercy for?
I don't know.
Dying in battle is warrior's mercy.
Yeah, I guess. But it's still kind of sad.
Magic is a conflict-driven game. That's the whole point. You need conflict to drive the experience forward.
But wouldn't it be shocking if somebody just died in their sleep?
It would.
She died in her sleep. What about you, Joe?
Here's Joe, the Archmage of Kings. After 5,000 years, he's lived in a banana peel. Cracked his head open.
Or like, why don't they just do an onset about Nicol Bolas's time in the meditation realm where he's going bananas, like talking to Allison said he was like, they should do a beach ball like Liliana, like in that Tom Hanks film. What was the name of that movie? He's like trapped on the island. Castaway, except it's a beach ball that looks like Liliana. And he's just like, oh wait, I have a Nicol Bolas effect that I was supposed to remember to use. I was supposed to use it now, but I couldn't remember to do it because I'm a dum-dum. Did it work? Did it happen?
Yeah. Yes, you sounded just like an elder dragon. It was uncanny.
I did. What about you, Joe? What was your favorite?
There's the stories I always remember is everything with Mirrodin through New Phyrexia. The whole slow bad arc, the everything with Glissa. I loved everything with that. Slow bad is one of the most tragic stories that Magic's told. It's so sad.
That whole arc is tragic.
It's so tragic. And then like you follow Glissa and like she just ends up getting turned into a Phyrexian later, and it's like, oh, that's sad too. Like that was the whole thing that Slow Bad saved a while back, and now she's just gone too. And New Phyrexia was awesome. The bad guys winning was like super, super awesome. It's so much different than what we usually see, because how many times can the good guys win? I mean, 99% of the time the good guys win. So having the bad guys win once in a while, it's a good twist. And now it's going to be great because they did win in the past to see them get their asses kicked now by, especially if Elspeth does it. Please. Elspeth needs to be the one who just takes down Ellishnorn. I want it so bad.
I think that's going to happen. I think
so too, but it's also possible with it. I mean, Elspeth's been tortured by Phyrexians her whole life. It's her big arc, right? It's like it's what she's scared of. It's what she fears. It's literally her worst nightmare. Like when Ashiok gave her a nightmare and she dreamt of the
Phyrexian Obliterator.
The Phyrexian Obliterator. And it's like, that's awesome that she still, after all these years, fears this. And she's getting a chance to redeem the arc. And it's even more heartwarming, or heartbreaking / heartwarming, that her best friend now was taken by Phyrexians in a Johnny. So she's got like all this going for it. And it's like, she's going to get her chance coming up to get that redemption and potentially even save her best friend in a Johnny, which, because they definitely have made a point, I think, because the weird thing with Squee getting Phyrexianized and still having a soul in kind of left some weird point where it's like, it seems like that the Phyrexianized walkers, there's a bit of them still there to be saved.
They got this little soul button in the inside them, right? Like their little soul button. I mean,
I think the stakes are better if they let a Johnny actually be dead, they let Tamio actually be dead, and anyone else who they Phyrexianize be dead. It makes the stakes a lot better and interesting and pushes for a better long-time storytelling. But also everyone's like, but it's a Johnny. I love a Johnny. I don't want a Johnny to be dead.
Yeah, everybody does love that kitty cat. I felt bad. It was pretty sad when it happened. I mean, like I was bummed out. But
I like Kylo Ren too, but I'm glad that they killed him. Like,
that's a fair point. I mean, it is better storytelling when you have real stakes, right?
I don't even know who Kylo Ren is. I
Well,
don't.
that's my time, guys. I'll see you.
No, who's Kylo Ren? I mean, I know
Star
Ren.
Wars. It's
It's,
not even
Adam
Star
Driver's
Wars.
character in the new Star Wars.
Oh, I haven't watched the new Star Wars. I watched the first 3, and then the fourth one. I was like, nope, nope.
He hasn't got a Universes Beyond card yet, so it doesn't really matter, right?
Yet.
I would not be shocked. We haven't seen anything through Disney yet, so apparently Hasbro and Disney are not.
Oh yeah, well, because Disney made their little card set, you know.
Wow, shots fired. That game is gonna be so good. You don't even know.
Is it?
That's
Is it?
the one that scares me.
I've
Yeah.
Are
heard
you
nothing but good things.
really?
I mean, I withhold judgment because what I do is I wait the year and a half, the 2 years, and see if people are still playing it. Because I did the same thing with Flesh and Blood. It's like nobody's playing Flesh and Blood now. It's like it still exists. It's around, but it's like, is it really around? If Marvel Snap's around in 2 years, I will be playing Marvel Snap because things that can survive a 2-year period and actually still be played and popular. That's when I'm interested.
Well, so like 1989 me would have shit my pants over an Ariel card. Like I would have been all in, like, because I love me some Ariel, you know, like gay, you know.
I'm
think-
straight and I love Ariel. She's
But you know, like maybe just a little gay then, because Ariel she's an icon. She's an icon.
I'm crooked, but straight but
She is an icon. She's in the annals of history, or should I say annals of history? That was terrible. I'm sorry for that. But no, who do you hear from that it was like really good, or like word on the street, or is that just?
Well, I have a whole video on my channel why Magic players should care about this.
I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one. I didn't, honestly. I watched the. I mean, I missed one, but
basically Disney partnered with an established game company, the company that makes their Villainous game, which is doing very well.
I've heard good things about that one.
It's a fine game, and I would not be embarrassed to have a copy of that on my shelf. Like, it's good. Number 2, they're hiring former Magic people to work on this game, which is another good sign, including one who did the frames for like
really. Oh my god!
They got him to do some of the game, and like I like him and all of his work, so he knows what he's doing. And then number 3, it's Disney. Like, they're not gonna mess this up. They have all of the best properties. They've got Marvel, they've got Star Wars, they've got all the Disney, the Lion King. You can have Kylo Ren, if you know who that is. You can have him in a deck along with the dragon from Maleficent and like kick ass. And even if no one's playing the game 2 years from now, it doesn't matter, because all the 8-year-olds are still going to buy the booster packs. Like, this game's going to be everywhere. It's going to have the biggest marketing budget ever. It's going to have all the cool characters you've ever wanted to collect. They're going to have different collectible versions because they can do exclusives you can only get at the theme parks. They're going to have exclusives you can only get in a McDonald's Happy Meal. They're going to have exclusive, versions that are when you buy a movie ticket to see the new Pixar movie, it'll come with a card, I bet you. And like Magic can't even begin to have that type of reach. And like, this game is just going to be everywhere a year from now.
On one hand, you're absolutely right. On the other hand, though, I guess like I could do a top 10 games that are better than Magic and didn't live 5 years.
But they didn't have the muscle of Disney.
Yeah. Disney is big muscle and big bucks, but no one wants to. Doesn't matter how much money you have, you don't want to just toss money in a pit. I don't know. The way I see it, Pokemon works because you can treat the card game as marketing and just toss money into it, and it's keeping your brand recognizable along young children. Does Disney need that? I mean,
God, they got though.
They are putting out games, right? Like you said, the Villainous games are out there, and people want to buy into the games. If you have a game that you can be more submerged into, you can have more obsession over, deeper than Villainous. Like people are gonna go towards that are fans of Disney and fans of collecting and gaming.
I'm not gonna lie, yeah.
Crossover.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's been huge on collectibles, right? The little pins that you can get at their parks, and there's a whole subculture of people who trade the exclusive
The
pins.
VHS tapes,
Oh.
Disney VHS
VHS
tapes are worth
tapes.
so much money, and nobody uses them. They just have them, and they're.
Are you
I-
kidding that the VHS tapes are worth money?
Yeah, they're worth like $500 like a pop.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My aunt threw them away because she couldn't leave them
We
away.
all did because we were under the impression that VHS was over, and it still is. But they still make them like that. People are releasing like special edition like VHS. I'm like, where are you gonna find a fucking like VCR to play that on? You can't. Where do they sell them? I'm sure now there's like VCR retro stores and like you know, in some sort of downtown Manhattan like.
I bet like Urban Outfitters has
Right.
next to the Polar cameras and the tape recorder.
Oh my god, yeah, cassettes. I'm like, you guys, no, there was they sucked. Like, you had to rewind them. Oh, and don't get me started on laser discs. It was the worst thing ever.
But if that's all you had, they were
Close.
cool as hell. Looking back on it, hindsight is 2020, right? It's
Right.
terrible technology. But when you were a little kid, you would sit there and you would wait 3 minutes for it to rewind so you could watch it all over again.
God, I remember getting yelled at because leaving it playing when you rewind it, and because it was apparently bad for it to like watch it play while it was rewinding.
Backwards.
You're like,
I basically get to watch it twice, Mom. This is actually saving us time. Like, what?
Man,
Look at-
retro tech is so stupid.
I loved
So
that.
stupid.
Why can't they just make a new version of that? Why can't they do that? Why can't they just make a Super Nintendo just brand spanking new so I can play my Castlevania 4 and be really bad at it now, even though I was really good at it back in the day? Why can't that happen?
Because
They
just send
did,
it to you over the air
but it's
now,
cost $600.
right?
You can also there's a lot of sites that do like custom build stuff like that actually, where you can just buy it.
I'm too old to figure that out.
No, it's cool to type in Super Nintendo, like a new Super Nintendo. I'm sure it'll come up if you do that.
I didn't even know who Lilo and Stitch was, you know? And like, that's Star Wars.
Kylo.
Is it Lilo and Stitch? When
Remember
you were
when this was about magic? This whole
Yes, it was. It used to be.
Disney
All
had to make their game.
right, I have a question about Magic, because one thing you mentioned, Ryan, that your favorite set is War of the Spark, or your story, whatever. A lot of the spotlight cards didn't happen in the story, and that like drove me nuts. It was like Chandra's victory, whatever it was called.
Yep.
That moment just didn't happen. It's not a moment that happens in the story at all, and
It's true.
it was so silly to me after I read the book, and I'm like, wait, no, like it was Lazav, literally Lazav with a flamethrower, which is
Right.
fucking ridiculous. Literally ridiculous. It's so good. There were so many. That was also something in the story I thought was hilariously stupid. Like 10 times, maybe it's like 5, but there's a character around and they're just Lazav. It's
Right.
like, why?
Yeah.
It's like for no reason too.
It does
It's
become
like,
very Scooby-Doo, but that's why I like the ambition. The ambition of that set was remarkable. The execution, not so great. And there are some artifacts in there, like that spotlight or that card in particular, but also like the background of Ashiok. They're like standing in the prison realm, which never happens in the story, but clearly they commissioned the art for this character to look like they were there. But that never happened. But like that leads you down the path of like, why? What was the original draft of this story supposed to be? And what did they think was going to happen? And what caused it to change? And like, there's so many.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
And
that's part of the cool mystery.
I also think that that's a way to cover your ass in a way. If you throw it in there and then years later you want to reference it, it's different. You can use that and be like, hey, no, they were in the meditation realm. They were in the meditation realm. Ashiok. Did you like the story? Okay, I will say, I don't want to say my favorite storyline because Joe already said it and it was Glissa, but I will say the short stories. I'd have to say one of my favorites of the like recent years was the Thalia story with when she was facing Henrika and the fall of her partner, the Lamo vampire. Now Audric. Well, Audric used to be really badass. As a vampire, he's weaker. I don't I don't get the card. Well, at least the card
I
mechanic.
think the card was the miss. I think
The card was the miss.
I think
The story
Odric
was-
I think Odric becoming a vampire is a really cool story. I love that he's a red-white vampire. I think that's also really cool without being corrupted to the point of being black. I
He's-
think it's like it's awesome overall, but then his character suck butts. It's like, what is this card?
But I hope they do something with him because he's like a Blade. He could be a Blade character. Like he could be Magic's Blade. Like, and it would, and I'd buy it.
Thalia has always been my favorite Magic character because
she's a badass.
I had her in my first deck, and like when I remember hearing the story about like when she's faced with the decision, Liliana's like, "Hey, stupid, I'm gonna kill your whole team if you don't destroy the Hellvolt." And it's like that's a cool choice. Like you have to release the demon that has tortured this plane for ever, or let your team die. And she's just like she's such a like caring person. She's like, all right, I'll do it. Luckily, it didn't matter because Liliana just killed Crystal Plant in 7 seconds.
Yeah, she took them. She took out all the big bad demons. I will also say
all the demons. She like didn't struggle at all. She
was
pissed.
pissed.
One of her demons. She was just like, nah, I got this.
She had been chain veiling. She was chain veiling it up. Like she'd gone. She did a few lines of chain veil. She was ready to go. That's all I'm saying. And I think also the story with Elspeth and Ashiok was really incredible. The surprise of having Ashiok and Elish Norn making Elspeth part of the nightmare, like the whole decaying, like Elspeth's rising from the ground. That was a treat. That was wonderful. But now that we're off of Lilo and Stitch, we are coming to a close. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining.
Literally never on Lilo and Stitch.
Look, Ren and Stimpy, Lilo and Stitch. I don't watch Star Wars. Okay, so just you.
I'm gonna send you the Stitch card from the Disney game when it comes out, and we're all playing it 2 years from now.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'll even sign it.
I'm always open to a new game. It just has to stand a little bit of the test of time. Like,
Joe, something you did mention, and I've still got this down my throat. What do you mean nobody's playing Flesh and Blood anymore?
It did not take off like everyone expected to. It does
really. There was $1 million tournament like 3 weeks ago.
$1 million?
Yeah,
I know
the game's just arriving in Brazil.
These tournaments are being it's the people who run Flesh and Blood not trying to let it go. Flesh and Blood still sells decently, but like it is much lower than they want you to think. And I am in my local area has a large gaming community. Like there's like Buffalo, New York is like ridiculous, and like I know like 5 players who play it, like in all the stores I go to. I mean, but again, that's one area, so I could be completely off about that. It is possible.
That mirrors what I see here as well, that the local scene for it doesn't seem to be as engaged as like there's the big competitive tournament circuit, which seems to be doing fine, but like that's not sustainable. You need the everyone playing on Friday night or whatever, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
I'm just super excited. The game just arrived in Brazil, and we got the armories. Literally just arrived. We're making a month of Flesh and Blood in Brazil.
Really? That's crazy.
It's kind of funny that it came up.
The armories are going on, and I've got my deck in this mess here somewhere.
And please tell me you'll fill me in on any of the fun translations that have happened, because I love.
There's no translation. It's in English.
Oh wow! Well, that's kind of disappointing. I mean, the translations in Portuguese are always so festive. But that's another.
That's a nice way to put it. Thank you.
It is. It's very festive. Very festive. What was it? What was it like? I'll censor this out, but like one of them is like vast unshaven. Yeah. That's the translation. I think it's vengeful. Oh shoot, Finewoods. The vast Finewoods, I think, is the one that got translated into
Vastwood Vines.
Vastwood Vines that's the one that's fast unshaven.
I gotta get a copy of that.
Yeah, and we'll be releasing a video soon about the 5th grader deck, which is that's a whole Another kettle of fish. We don't. It's translation, Ryan. If make you not look so haunted and confused. The 5th grader deck, it would translate more along the lines of high schooler deck, but just it's for adults. It's not actually for 5th graders. 5th graders shouldn't be playing cards with names like that on it. You know,
The humor is that of a 5th grade boy.
oh well, a very advanced 5th grade boy. I'd say
don't
more
know.
like a. I mean,
5th grade boys love saying bad words. It's hilarious.
I never. I mean, I don't.
You're telling me when you were in 5th grade, you didn't like to saying like, oh, I got away with it.
I didn't. I don't think I would ever say vast unshaven. I mean, I might have vast
What if
and
somebody if I had known those words as when I was in 5th grade, I would have said them all.
Oh, really?
You do know Pyru, the dragon from Modern Horizons?
Yeah, doesn't that mean like doesn't that mean dick? Yeah, dick.
Yeah.
Piru, ever since the 60s, is slang for a penis. And so, yeah.
Here in America,
And
it's a street gang.
Oh,
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. The
What about
Pirates, they're offshoot of the Bloods.
What about
Oh my
Xenagos, god of orgies?
Well, see, that's how I'm going to get shot. If someone tell me I'm with the Pyrus, I would not keep a straight face. That's how I get shot.
That's fun. Well, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I hope Ryan, you haven't been too horrified into a coma.
I mean, we're just gonna delete this whole thing, right? It's never gonna air or anything.
It's never gonna air ever.
Go
Nope.
hang out with Nicole
Never,
Bolas.
Yeah.
Nicole
we don't-
Bolas.
we don't want
Nicole
anyone-
Bolas. Huh?
We don't want
What?
to hear anyone actually say that Ryan likes War of the Spark. We don't want that to make the air.
Bury that evidence.
Oh. But yeah, no, I will. I will bury it by releasing it, but also by burying it after I release it.
But
But-
from Nick Kelman now, being like, "Oh,
Nick
you're the guy who likes my stories."
That book was just so out there. It's just so.
Yep. I'm not
It
gonna
was-
refute that. I'm not.
It was like Lolita, except worse. It was, I mean, almost like Lolita on steroids.
But the important thing that we learned is that Chandra only likes big burly men. Vast,
Oh, God.
unshaven
What was
men.
Decidedly male.
Decidedly,
Decidedly-
decidedly unshaven.
Decidedly
Okay,
unshaven.
I
vast men.
saw. Okay, while we're on the topic of
We
things,
almost got away from.
of things that are inappropriate, something very funny that I saw. Somebody posted this on Twitter, and it was one of their more popular posts.
Hmm.
And it was basically Chandra and Nissa flirting,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
Nissa is deciding on a sex toy, and she's like, "I called this one decidedly male," which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, I hope it
was a
comes in
really good
green.
tweet.
Oh, please tell me it comes in green, like a Zendikarian. Eldrazi vibrators. Okay, I'm going off now. We'll stop. I've gone demented. So thank you guys so much again. It's been great, and I promise this will never see the light of day.
Okay.
Bye bye.